Good afternoon. I'm taking the opportunity to record the intro for the fourth part of the series on painting this Brook Trout. Even though I'm not done with the editing there, I know what's going to be in it now. For a little while I had the notion that I could include the repair of these two fins into that. I broke them in the beginning, but it's not going to be possible because that part in itself is going to be at least 20-25 minutes. So I'm going to have to skip that and make this part number 4 about the painting of the fins. Not any repair painting, but the basic painting of the fins, how I painted them. So that's what the number 4 is going to be about, and let's start painting. So now it's time for the fins then, and I need to start looking at reference again and see what I have to do. And the paired fins, the ones on the belly side and the anal fin, are very much red with this sharp white edge and the sharp black towards the white, shading over into red on the other side. There is yellow in the bottom, and there is some transparency that I will try to recreate. And on the dorsal fin, the same yellow as in the body comes back in the bottom, and then you have the vermiculations. So that is going to be created in pretty much the same way as I created the pattern on the body. Start with that. And now it will be time to go to yellow, I think. It's going to be good. And I'm not going to dry brush this on. I see that the best way to do that would be to just thinly wet brush it on like this. It's going to come through really nice. And now to create transparency here, one way to do it is to use pearl, and then to make a reflection and create the impression that the yellow is light coming from the other side, and then transparency gels. I will show you what I mean in a minute or so. I have to remove that white spot there. Gone. So let's start with a little pearl again. Same procedure. Just a drop of paintbrush grade pearl. This one. Plug it. And then a fairly big paintbrush. And a good amount of water. To make this pearl just like a wash on top of these. this yellow. And the paint on this side wasn't dry enough, so I had to go with this hairdryer again. And I'll let this sit a few minutes and get dry before I go on with the transparency gel. Yeah, so transparency gels or structural gels, I don't know. They are used for different things, but there are different kinds of gels on most brands. I use Golden, of course, but here's Liquitex. That's about the same stuff. And with this you can build up a thickness, and it's clear so that you can see through it, or you have this matte gel too that is a little bit shady, and with that you can build up, for example, the shady transparency that you have in the throat of a perch or something like that. But I'm not going to use that one now because this is a fin. I'm just going to use a gloss gel which is clear and try to create a thickness that this yellow light is coming from beneath, and then put the red on top and create a little illusion of the red being on top of something that comes, light that comes from below. Hopefully get some kind of transparency into the fin. And what I use is a big paintbrush, water, and then I just brush it on. Try to follow the fin ray directions and not create any ridges. But this shrinks when it dries, and I'll have to make this procedure a few times, but when it's done I will have a thickness over this yellow that will hopefully help create the illusion of transparency. Water is good in the brush when you do this because that helps level it out. It's actually difficult to level this out on a perfectly smooth surface, so it's good that these fins have rays because that helps hide the tracks from the paintbrush. On smooth surfaces I prefer spraying it on actually, and I use a big airbrush type gun to do, not big, but big for an airbrush to do that, because these thin needles that we have in ordinary airbrushes won't let this gel through. But if you have like 0.5 millimeter needle or something like that in your airbrush, you can find techniques to make it go through, and you can spray a smooth or shiny surface with it too and get this effect. That I'm going to have to repeat this. It takes a while to dry, maybe an hour or two, so this is what I'm going to do today. A couple of coats of this, and on the other surfaces of the fins too, of course. So now there are I think 5 coats of this gel on these fins. I think you can see that it has built some thickness, and when I put on red on this, I hope that the effect will be that you feel the red resting a bit above the yellow that is shining through by reflection, and that you get an illusion of transparency. And I am going to use a number of different reds to try to create this. You can see that there is one with yellow shining through in the bottom, and different reds on top. Here is another one. And some are, of course, deeper red. But I'm going to try to find something that works for this fish, and it is the usual method of layering transparent colors on top of each other. So I have the bright red orange that I used before. I have Naphtha red, which is a rather basic red, and then I have quinacridone red, which is more deeper, more to the blue, but I think it's not going to go so blue when I put it on the others. I think it's just going to deepen the red down to the tone that I need to have. So I'm going from the orange to the blue-red gradually. And for this painting I'm not going to use so much stippling and things like that, as I'm going to use water. I just moisten the surface just a little bit with a slightly moist paintbrush, and then I put paint on and I let that creep or travel in the water. And I think you can see now, as this is coming on, the transparency effect that this gives. I have a strand of hair there. So I'll do the same with this one. Just a little water, not much. And some paint. And then use the wet brush to just spread the paint, and since there is water on the surface, it is traveling down into the structures, which is giving a nice effect. I call this method painting with water because that's what it is, and I find it very useful for soft transitions of every kind. Naphtha red now and try to deepen, and now I'm going to stay more from the middle and down and not really up at the edge, inner edge of these fins, because the red deepens down towards in that direction. And red. And I'm going to repeat this a number of times to find the tone that I want. And now the quinacridone red to make the red become really deep towards the white-black edge. extremely red, but I think I'll hold there for now. Let this dry, maybe put on a clear coat to see how it looks when it's dried and clear coated, and then might go back and make some tone adjustments, and I might even go a little bit bluer in places with a magenta, but for now I'll stop and let this set. So my plan now is actually to put on the black and the white first, and use the black to tone the red down a little, the way it does when it shades into the red, and see where that goes, and after that maybe I will adjust the red. But to prepare for that, to get a start for the white, I will use the ordinary silver spray that I use as a base, and put some of that just where the white is supposed to be, so that I can get some spark to the white without having to go extremely thick and opaque with it. Not so critical. Now I just want this to go opaque white before I seal and then go on with the black. And as always with white, I like to give it a little touch of pearl, just to make it pop a little. I'm going to do that too. Just water and pearl. So the white is dried, and I sprayed it with a little lacquer, and that is dried. So it's time to start putting on the black edges. And it's the same thing as before, not really black, rather like the old Polytransfer black umber. And if I remember right from the belly, I used 5, that was 6 drops of raw umber and 2 drops of black. Let's use that and see where that goes. And I'll do it like this. just put a thin line. Along where I want it. Something like that. And then I go in with a moist, not wet brush. And see how the water moves the black out into the red and creates the shading that I want. That's what I want. I'm going to have to repeat that a few times. Until it looks the way I want it. Moist, not wet. Just let the water allow the paint to travel out on the red surface here. That one will have to be redone. I'll actually remove what I put on there. Some alcohol and start over. Went too much into the white, which became a problem. There, better. Better start anyway. I'm going to let that sit for a while. See how it turns out, and then maybe go back and make a few adjustments later. So, 2 days later, after the terrible accident, can't say that I am dissatisfied with how the repair turned out. So I'm trying to get back on track now, and I'll do a little bit of reference checking on how the final coloration of the fins should be, and going up to these photos of fish of approximately the same coloration. I find that the caudal fin becomes darker, or is darker than the pectoral and pelvic fins, and possibly the anal fin too. And some caudal fins even tone towards blue or bluish red, something that I can achieve with I think Payne's Gray. And we'll start with these undersides of the paired fins to match the color in the ones I repaired. Put on some moisture. And some paint. And the spots here are actually good because that's what you get. The coloration on a fish is made up of pigment cells, living pigment cells. They contract and expand according to what the fish sees, and that means they are spots. They are not even tones, they are spots, and the color is really made up of different spots of different colors. So the unevenness that I get and the small blotches and spots that appear in places like this are actually not a problem. They are more like making it look more natural, because that's the way the paint appears. And then the anal fin and the caudal fin, and I need to tone them a bit towards blue, I think. So I'm going to pour up some Payne's Gray. Maybe even dry brushing this out so that I get the tone. Dry brushing spreads things very even. Wet brushing, which I'm doing with the water brush, is more like making it go down into low spots and creates unevenness and variation. But right now I want a bluish tone to these fins, so I'm going to go on with this for a while, dry brushing. I'm going to go to magenta 2 here. I need that to really hit the tone that I want. So I'll pour up some magenta 2. See how that deepened immediately. And let's give it another round of Payne's Gray then. See if that is taking us in the right direction. It does. I don't want much now, and I don't want too much dry brushing, because that is going to work. And when the caudal fin has this bluish tone, I also observe that there is usually a darker edge and also a darker area close to the caudal peduncle.